Well, we start at this hour with a live look at downtown Spokane. You can see the roads still looking pretty wet down there as it is still raining. Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 10 tonight. I'm Mark Hanrahan. Well, what a difference the day makes. After a beautiful weekend, the rain has arrived. The question now, how long will it be here for? Let's get straight to meteorologist Thomas Patrick in the Outdoor Weather Center. Thomas, this may be a first. I don't think I've ever seen you out there holding an umbrella before.
Hey, I may have done it once or twice, but it's definitely been several months. I think maybe the last time was back when it rained in January, if you think about all those months ago. That
was a while ago, my friend. I think I can still hear it out there. It's still coming down, right?
Yes, it is still coming down at quite a clip. So that's why I did decide to bring the umbrella, even though I know here in the Pacific Northwest, you're usually pretty hardy, but trying to keep the clothes dry as much as possible. But the rain has been very steady, and that's the way it's going to stay for several more hours. I'm going to admit the last couple rainfalls in town, I actually wasn't in town for them. So this is the most rain that I've seen in quite a few months. But again, those last couple rainfalls notwithstanding. Here it is, kind of the northern portion of it. You can see from about Newport to Sandpoint is where some of the heaviest rain is. This is pretty light, but overall steady here in Spokane where the rain continues to come down. And then there's some batches even off to our south as most of this rain is traveling northward across the area, but it's looking like it's going to stay this way for several more hours. Pretty much the rest of the evening. Our 12-hour forecast has that rain through about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning before we do get a bit of a dry stretch for tomorrow. But this upcoming weekend, well, we're kind of in between where it could be very cold or very warm. So I'm looking ahead at not just how long the rainfall is going to last for tonight, but where our next weekend is going to lie, and if it's closer towards 80 degrees or if our lows might be closer to 32. So you're going to have to stick around to see all that.
I will talk to you then, Thomas. Thank you very much. In the meantime, we are learning more about the deadly shooting near College Hill in Pullman over the weekend. The man accused of shooting 2 people, killing one of them and seriously hurting a WSU football player, faced a judge for the first time today. The suspect, George Harris III, made his first court appearance this morning. He turned himself into Pullman police early Saturday morning. Police say he admitted to firing at least 1 shot the night of the shooting. We also learned from his court hearing today, the victim who died, Liban Barr, was one of his roommates. Whitman County court documents show that after police heard gunshots, they found Liban Barr on the ground, who later died from his injuries. In court today, Harris's mother and his roommate told the judge he is not a threat and acted in self-defense.
This was just such a tragic event. Nobody could have predicted. And he is not a threat. He's never ever been in trouble. He's not that type of person. He honestly was just defending himself.
He just was put in a situation where he had to defend himself. It's just a terrible accident. He doesn't get in trouble. We just focus on school, work, and nothing else.
Harris, in the meantime, is charged with second-degree assault for his involvement in the shooting. As mentioned, one of the people shot in this weekend in Pullman was WSU wide receiver Brandon Gray. Our Brennan Green has more of the team's reaction to Friday night's events now.
Yeah, Brandon was in Pullman and not with the team in Salt Lake City because he is not on the travel squad. Nick Rolovich told us today he found out about the incident at 2:30 in the morning and that it was a late night figuring out what to do next.
There was a lot of emotion. That's just a hard thing to hear on the morning of a game.
WSU football players arose Saturday morning preparing to play an early 11:30 a.m. game against Utah. However, they also arose to the news that their teammate Brandon Gray had been shot and life-flighted to Spokane.
We talked about playing inspired football for BG. Of course, it could have gone better and could have been better, but how they approached it and how they did it and the effort they put forth, what I think people saw, is commendable.
Gray is now in stable condition, according to Rolovich. On Saturday, WSU defensive player Ron Stone was obviously shaken up by the situation.
When you see something in the news like that, you never expect it to be someone you know. It's shocking and it's humbling to know that not every day is guaranteed, and you have to take every day for granted.
For 5th or 6th year players on this team, such as offensive lineman Abe Lucas, this is their 3rd major tragedy since January of 2018. That's when quarterback Tyler Helinski took his life. Then 2 Marches ago, safety Bryce Beekman died of an accidental overdose.
It was tough. Seems to be a recurring thing around here. And for some reason, I don't know why. I heard the news. It took me back to Tyler and Bryce. Difficult.
Rolovich said Monday, though, that he was impressed with how his seniors handled the situation.
There is a lot of strength and maturity in the older guys who have been through some of these. They took it upon themselves to not only grieve or have concerns or their own emotions, but I think they were there for each other, especially the guys who are young and new to the program.
Stone knows that there is nothing positive about a shooting, but he hopes that something good can come from this.
There's a lot of love in this locker room, a lot of love on this campus. I think this is the time we're really going to start to feel people come together and feel that love and that helping Coug mentality that we all have.
Just a lot for that team to take in over the last few years. Since we are on the topic of football, 2 notes from Rolovic's press conference today. He said that quarterback Jaden DeLora is, quote, close to playing this week after a knee injury against USC. Running back Max Borghi is questionable after a wrist injury at Utah, but Rolovic said it could have been much worse than what the injury ended up being. Back to you.
Brenna, thank you very much. Also new tonight, we now know the fire started in an old abandoned building last night was an act of arson. The fire actually was so bad it led to bad air quality in parts of Spokane this morning. Crews were able to go through about 80% of the building, they said, before they had to leave because of unsafe conditions. Thankfully, no one was found inside. No injuries were reported. The building, however, is considered a total loss. The cause of that fire is still under investigation by the Spokane Fire Department Special Investigations Unit. A member of the Central Valley School Board has resigned. Misty Renault was vice president of the board of directors at Central Valley. Her resignation was unanimously accepted by the board during their meeting tonight. Board President Deborah Long said the resignation came because Renault is moving out of the district for her job. In the interim, the board voted to name Cindy McMullen as the acting vice president until the next round of board elections. A big announcement today from Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson. Greyhound bus lines will pay $2.2 million to settle a lawsuit over what Ferguson called warrantless immigration sweeps on its buses, including at the Spokane Intermodal Center. Here's KREM 2's Ian Smay with more on the suit and what it means.
The lawsuit alleges that the bus company failed to warn customers of the sweeps and subjected its passengers to discrimination based on skin color or race. The money paid from the suit will be used as restitution to passengers who were detained, arrested, or deported after immigration agents boarded buses at the Spokane Intermodal Center. The amount a person or family receives will depend on the number of claims and the severity of harm suffered due to their conduct. Under the settlement, Greyhound is also required to create a policy that denies Border Patrol agents to board their buses without a warrant or reasonable suspicion, issue a public statement in both English and Spanish saying they don't consent to agents boarding their buses without proper documents, and place stickers on or near their buses stating they don't consent to immigration agents boarding their buses without those documents. Greyhound will also have to pay a part of Ferguson's legal fees, and Ferguson said in a tweet today, quote, "On the eve of today's scheduled trial, Greyhound agreed to my demands. Greyhound will no longer consent to exposing its passengers to fishing expeditions from ICE. Greyhound will pay more than $2 million for the Washingtonians harmed by Greyhound's conduct." The sweeps at the Spokane Intermodal Center gained national attention in 2019 after comedian Mohamed El Sheikhi was detained by Border Patrol agents. He was returning to Portland from a show at Washington State University in Pullman when he said he was pulled off of a bus and asked to show documents to agents. He said agents accused his documents of being fake before being allowed back on the bus. He reached a settlement with the government that resulted in him being paid $35,000. I spoke with him earlier this evening, and here's his reaction to the settlement.
I mean, I wish they've just stopped that earlier, and it didn't have to go into that and like being like, you know, taken to court and all of that and having like to pay money. But that was their choice. So I'm very happy with it, and hopefully that will be something that, you know, happens like nationwide and not just, you know, in Washington.
There's also another settlement paid out by the government due to these sweeps. Andreas Sosa Segura was also paid $35,000 after he was detained in 2017 and then transferred to a facility 90 minutes away for interrogation before being released several hours later. The United States Customs and Border Patrol told us earlier today that they do not comment on the outcome of court proceedings. In the newsroom, Ian Smay, KREM 2 News.
Washington state health officials say COVID hospitalizations are slowing down. Right now, there are 1,277 patients, down from 1,504 last week, almost all of them unvaccinated. Deaths, however, continue to rise. The state is averaging about 30 COVID deaths every day.
We've heard from families that grief has even more layers now, for the feeling of we could have prevented this. We could have prevented the loss of our loved one.
76.4% of people 12 and up in the state of Washington have received at least one dose of the vaccine. 69.7% are considered to be fully vaccinated now. President Joe Biden, meantime, rolled up his sleeve for his third dose of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine while pushing for more Americans to get vaccinated. And as the needle went into his arm, President Biden addressed a question about vaccine accessibility around the world.
We are helping, we're doing more than every other nation in the world combined. We're going to have well over 1,100,000,000 shots, and we're going to continue going. We're going to do our part. We've also given a great deal of funding to COVAX, which is the vehicle that does this. So we have plenty of opportunity to make sure we get everyone in the world to play our part, the largest part in the world of getting everyone vaccinated.
Last week, the CDC endorsed boosters for seniors, medically vulnerable adults, and people with high-risk jobs like healthcare workers. Healthcare vaccine mandates with no religious exemption, meantime, are about to go into effect in Rhode Island and Maine. Healthcare workers in 17 other states and Washington, D.C. can claim religious exemptions, but they must be tested regularly. Still ahead tonight, we may be just a few days into fall, but we're already looking forward to winter. We are supposed to have a La Nina winter this year, so what does that mean? Meteorologist Thomas Patrick will join us to tell us what we should expect. Plus, a train derailed that was on its way to Seattle. We'll give you those details coming up later in the broadcast.